The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. You're listening to We Are Family Therapy Radio. It's a short broadcast because the topics that we're going to be covering are very deep and personal. And when we talk about missing persons and missing children, this is what I confronted coming home in 1984. And all these other things become secondary. As my dad once told me, he goes, everything, you get your priorities straight pretty quick when you realize that there are other things going on than just people disagreeing. Mine was coming home alone and afraid that something bad happened to my family. And I have done a lot of things to try to discuss it. And the wounds of a childhood is one thing. It's to go home alone and not sure if your family is going to talk to you or cold shoulder treatment. This is the stuff that went on in foster care too. We're going to get into it. I can feel like the healing needs to happen though. Like to be angry at each other for something that is out of your control as a child. Like I personally need to express my views on this. I'm not angry at anyone in my family at all. Not for being a victim of something that could have been terribly, terribly wrong. During that time, it was the Johnny Gesh story, and our story started take on similar traits. And when I tell you boxes and things were turning up and things were not looking good. So when somebody sneers off what we're talking about here in therapy, that's the kind of childhood I had. I grew up. I came home to a vacant home and a for sale sign on my house, and my uncle still hasn't explained what happened. You know, I'm supposed to accept that the for sale sign was on the house, but there were neighbors that took us in, and my brothers went over to stay with Johnny and Laura Sable, which are cousins. That's unacceptable. There was a for sale sign on our house, and I'm like trying to understand why are you selling our house? And my dad, before he passed away, told me this over and over again, that my uncle had gone and sold the house without his signature on it. And then I talked to an attorney who was defending me on an incident that occurred with my knee at an apartment building. And whenever we talk to attorneys, like I spoke to Dallas Hartman, who, and he has a great law firm, by the way. But we all have been through something with severe violence and abuse. And the threats that were made or directed towards us, or however it was directed towards us, you could pretty much get a pretty good idea when somebody makes references to garbage bags and boxes. Like, I need to know what happened. And as one of the granddaughters for the attorney for the Pittsburgh police, our case may have something to do with something that happened long before I was aware of it. So, and this happened to me at 14 years old, though. I approached a building where a sex offender was abusing children. So I want you to know that what I went through and what I was approaching was a male offender who had specifically been targeting young boys in sex offender type topics that we're discussing. I'm gonna open it up to you guys to listen to what it was like. We have a We Are Family Therapy clinic that we're working on, and we want to be licensed in Pennsylvania to be able to talk to other families and victims, and also go out and talk to members of the community about what we went through in 1984 and 1985, about how we changed legislation in 2016, because that legislation now, you can sue a sex offender, like in the case of Jeffrey Epstein. You can sue him and you can win it here in Pennsylvania. That is, we changed legislation. See, we might not have a real organized thing, but I'm going to call it Macy Pack, because when I was young, my friends and I, we would go out and we would perform. And I tried out for the Pom Pom Squad, and that made me feel so good that I could get out there and try out. After all that my family had gone through with the missing persons, ordeal, and abuse, that I could go out and have fun and get creative, and we're still doing creative things. And I want to emphasize on our creative side, because I think creativity it's a lot of hard work when you see your kids and your nephews and your nieces drawing and coloring. And I want to include in the next post the therapy dolls, because I have to introduce the therapy dolls into our counseling session. But it's a therapy clinic, and we want to be licensed in Pennsylvania, and also help move legislation so that victims can get compensation. And I've talked to numerous attorneys, and a lot of them couldn't take the case, but I know that eventually, whenever these cases do go to court, it'll most likely have to be handled by prosecution and at the state level. I just want to empower you all. Whenever we introduce the therapy dolls, it takes some time to put the therapy dolls together. But this is all inspired by Charles Stanley too. So we do a lot of Christian counseling. It's a very important part of what we do. We have retail therapy. I already showed you the eggs here. You should see, you'll see the eggs here in a moment. But that's part of our retail therapy, which is a sequence eggs that I found for 40 cents over at Dollar General. So don't miss those little last minute deals. You get some sequence eggs. How many people get sequence hard-boiled eggs? Which that's not what they are, but it's decorative eggs. It's cute stuff like that, though. Things that can keep you on your heels. And we do a lot of things in counseling and support, and I just want to thank those people. I want to thank Dr. Gail Hague, because Dr. Gail Hague was our court-appointed therapist, and Dr. Gail Hague has made a profound difference in our lives. And she's now working with therapy dogs, so that's the next thing for some of us. We're going to Glade Run to work on the horse therapy program. It has had a profound effect on us. It's been a positive, awesome, enjoyable experience. Hanging out and going to counseling and therapy is a very nurturing and nourishing experience, especially after what we've been through. I also want to emphasize also with counseling, there's been some painful things that we had to witness, and that's one of the things about children that witness abuse or witness anything. It's painful. So do everything you have to do to shelter your children so they don't have to see or remember the abuse of any kind. The best way to do it is call a cab and get out of danger if you need to in the middle of the night. Make sure you have a safety plan. That's one thing my mom did right, was she had a safety plan, and we got out in the middle of the night just before the abuse got bad enough, you know. I mean, things were bad, and it didn't get that bad until, I mean, we left, more or less. But, there's a lot of positive things that come out of therapy, and we want to make sure that when we get licensed, once we finish the course that we're on, we're going to go through a lot of counseling until then. But counseling is a positive, and it's an awesome experience for those who get involved in it. It's very helpful. Thank you for listening to We Are Family Therapy Radio.